She wasn't looking for an apology. She had already raised the child he walked away from. But when he showed up 6 years later, asking to meet the little girl he never held, she didn't expect what happened next. Welcome to Mr. Charles Stories. If this is your first time here, we share powerful, emotional stories rooted in real-life experiences and hard-won lessons. If you're someone who believes that healing, redemption, and second chances are earned, not given, you're in the right place. Have you ever been left behind by someone who promised they'd stay? Do you know someone raising a child alone while the other parent simply vanished? This story explores what happens when the past knocks on your door, and this time, it wants forgiveness. Would you ever let someone like that back into your life? If stories like this move you, go ahead and tap that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, and share your thoughts in the comments as we begin. Sarai Benson never planned to fall for someone like him. She was 22, fresh out of nursing school, and more focused on passing her board exams than falling in love. Atlanta buzzed with opportunity, but Sarai lived by structure, early shifts, savings goals, and a tight daily routine that left no space for distractions, especially the expensive kind. But that day at the blood drive changed everything. She had volunteered with her classmates, eager to rack up hospital hours and give back. The event was held in a luxury hotel conference center, sponsored by a private foundation. White marble floors, soft jazz in the background, and donors who arrived in designer shoes. That's when she saw him. He wasn't surrounded by cameras or staff like the other wealthy attendees. He wore a dark grey suit, open collar, no tie, and his sleeves rolled to the forearm. His expression wasn't bored or self-important like the others. He looked curious. Sarai didn't even know his name when he approached her. "Are you a nurse yet?" he asked, smiling as he watched her rearrange bandages. "Almost," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Graduated last week." "Impressive," he replied, offering his hand. "I'm Callum." She shook it, hesitant. "Callum. Drayton." The name landed like a silent boom. Callum Drayton, son of Conrad Drayton, real estate tycoon, investor, and headliner at nearly every charity event in Georgia. Sarai blinked. "Right," she said slowly, hiding her surprise. "Well, thanks for donating." He laughed, hands in his pockets. "I didn't come to donate." She raised a brow. "I came to meet someone who didn't care that I'm a Drayton." He was bold, but not pushy. Sarai gave a small smirk. That line always work. "Only when I mean it." They talked for 15 minutes. Then he invited her to coffee. No limo, no driver, just a quiet cafe 2 blocks down. She said no. Then he showed up again the next day, same blood drive, carrying coffee in a to-go tray with her name written on the cup. He hadn't forgotten. This time, she said yes. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into long phone calls, walks in Grant Park and grocery, runs where he pushed the cart, like it was the highlight of his week. Callum wasn't who she thought he'd be. He didn't talk about money. He didn't flaunt power. He listened. He asked questions. He watched her with genuine interest, as if her thoughts were rare and valuable. On Sundays they cooked in her small apartment, him learning how to dice onions, her learning how to let someone in. He never asked to move in. He never rushed anything. He showed up. Always. By month 5, Sarai had fallen, not fast, not blindly, but fully. She wasn't in love with his money. She was in love with how he looked at her like she mattered, how he sat on the floor and read medical textbooks just to understand her stress, how he made her laugh at the end of hard shifts. She didn't think of herself as a woman swept away. She thought of herself as someone seen. Then came the nausea. At first, she blamed it on long hours and poor sleep. But when it didn't stop, and when the smell of coffee suddenly made her gag, she bought a test. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring at 2 pink lines. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She waited for the right moment to tell him, waited for the words to make sense. But how do you tell someone who once joked about never wanting kids that you're carrying theirs? She waited until they were eating Thai food on her couch, a movie on in the background. "I think I'm pregnant," she said softly. Callum froze. He didn't blink, didn't ask how far along, didn't reach for her hand. He just stared, then quietly said, "You're sure?" Sarai nodded. Twice. He exhaled. Slow. "I need some air." He stood. She expected him to return. He didn't. She didn't see him for days. Then, a text. "Check your account." "I transferred something to help." Nothing else. She didn't check. A week later, another text. "I'm sorry. I can't do this right now." That was the last thing he ever said. No calls, no visits, no knock at the door. Just silence. Sarai didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't even cry right away. She sat in the same spot on the couch and whispered to herself, "You'll be fine." Then she got up and made a list. Item 1, tell Aunt Renee. Item 2, find another job. Item 3, get through this. When Aunt Renee opened the door, she didn't ask questions. She pulled Sarai into a hug and said, "We got you." They squeezed into a 2-bedroom apartment in Stone Mountain, tight but warm. Renee worked as a school janitor. She didn't judge Sarai for getting pregnant, didn't say "I told you so." She just made room for her and for the future. Sarai found a job at a community clinic, working front desk during the day and filing paperwork at night. She never told her co-workers about Callum. He was a closed chapter, or so she thought. Sarai's days became mechanical. Wake up at 5, walk down the narrow hall to the kitchen and help Aunt Renee prep her lunch. Leave for the clinic by 6:45. Smile at strangers who didn't know she was carrying the child of a man who vanished without explanation. She was exhausted, but she refused to break. She ignored every transfer Callum sent. The first was $15,000, the next 50. Then, a final wire of $100,000 hit her inbox a week after her second trimester began. She called the bank and had them send the money back. She didn't want to raise her child with his money. She wanted to raise her child with peace. Her belly grew. The nausea lingered. Some days, she couldn't even keep down crackers, but she still showed up at the clinic. No one there knew her business. No one asked. No one had to. She worked until her feet hurt, until her scrubs barely fit, until the baby moved during patient check-ins, and she had to pause to breathe. Even then, she didn't complain. Aunt Renee would rub her back when she came home and pray over her belly every night. "You're not alone," she said. "You're just in the middle." Sarai never forgot that line. Labor hit on a humid Tuesday evening. She was sorting inventory when her back locked up. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She called the cab, texted her aunt, and held herself together through the longest 21 hours of her life. When Layla entered the world, silent at first, then shrieking with strength, Sarai whispered her name like it was a gift. Layla Elise. Her eyes, Callum's eyes, opened wide. But Sarai didn't flinch. This child didn't belong to a man who left. She belonged to her mother, to the woman who stayed. The next 6 months were a blur of midnight feedings, diapers, and sheer willpower. Sarai would feed Layla with one hand, while typing chart entries with the other. Her aunt stayed up with Layla when Sarai picked up overnight shifts at urgent care. On Layla's first birthday, Sarai baked her a heart-shaped banana cake with one candle and a stuffed lion she bought for $5 from a thrift store. They laughed. They danced in the kitchen. No one was missing from that moment. Sarai felt whole. Time passed. Layla became a curious toddler, bright, sweet, and stubborn like her mama. She loved books and peanut butter sandwiches cut into stars. She refused naps unless someone hummed to her. Her first word was mine. Her second, up. Sarai juggled everything: job, study, savings. She took courses online and passed her pediatric nurse certification before Layla turned 4. The apartment was small, but their life was full. Sarai started a new job at a clinic near Decatur, with better pay and decent hours. Every morning, she braided Layla's curls and walked her to daycare with a travel mug of tea and a full heart. She didn't date, not because she was bitter, but because she wasn't interested in starting something with someone who couldn't match the strength it took to stay. She never told Layla about Callum, not because she hated him, because there was no story to tell that would serve Layla's peace. He was young, and scared wouldn't cut it. He had money, but no courage didn't explain it either. Sarai believed in telling the truth, but only the truth that healed. So she told Layla this: "You are loved." More than anything, on nights when Layla asked where her dad was, Sarai would smile gently and say, "He isn't with us right now. But you're not missing anything. You have everything you need." And Layla, in her innocence, would nod and say, "Okay." And that was that. Until 6 years later, Sarai opened her inbox at 7:05 a.m. during a slow clinic shift. She was sipping coffee, glancing at appointment confirmations when she saw the subject line, "A matter concerning your daughter." She almost deleted it. Then something made her click. The message was short. "Ms. Benson, I know I have no right to ask, but I need to meet her. Please." Callum. Her hands froze above the keyboard. Her coffee went cold. She stared at the words like they were in another language. He found them. After all these years, he wanted to see her, to see Layla. Why now? What had changed? Was he sick? Lonely? Bored? Sarai didn't know. She didn't respond that day, or the next. She read the message 3 more times, then closed her laptop. But the seed had been planted, and all she could think was, would seeing him bring peace, or break everything she'd worked so hard to protect? Sarai didn't sleep much the night after the email. She kept waking up to Layla's soft breathing beside her and staring at the ceiling in the dark. She wasn't scared. She wasn't angry. She was unsure. Uncertain if anything good would come from reopening a door that she'd sealed shut years ago. But she didn't delete the message. That had to mean something. 2 days later, she replied, "Thursday, South Creek Park, 10 a.m., come alone." Nothing more. She didn't sign her name, didn't add questions, no pleasantries, just a time and place. When Thursday came, she braided Layla's hair, packed her a sandwich, and left her with Aunt Renee without explaining much. "I just need to settle something from a long time ago," she said softly. Renee looked at her for a long moment, but didn't press. "You got this," she said, and Sarai nodded. The park was quiet at that hour. Golden leaves floated in the early fall breeze. A few joggers passed by. A father pushed a stroller near the playground. It all felt normal, which made her even more tense. She waited on a bench. Callum arrived 10 minutes late. He wore dark slacks and a navy blazer. His hair was longer than she remembered, and there were slight shadows under his eyes. He didn't walk like a billionaire. He walked like a man unsure if he belonged. "Sarai," he said, stopping a few feet away. She didn't smile, didn't offer a hug. She simply said, "You're late." Callum gave a small, awkward chuckle. "Yeah. I figured I might be." He sat down slowly, leaving space between them. Silence settled for a moment. Then he spoke. "I'm not here to make excuses," he said, "and I know that anything I say won't change what happened, but I had to try. I had to see you." Her eyes stayed forward. "I never thought you'd want to see either of us again." "I didn't think I was allowed to," he admitted. "For years I convinced myself staying away was the best thing for both of you. Especially Layla." He paused. "My family was intense, controlling. When I told them about you, about the pregnancy, they threatened to cut me off, force me into an arranged engagement to protect the family image." Sarai turned to him slowly. "You think I cared about your money?" "No," he said quickly. "I didn't mean it that way." "Then why didn't you just tell me?" she asked. "Why disappear instead of facing me like a man?" Callum sighed. His voice dropped. "Because I was scared. I had always lived under their control. And the moment I finally had something, someone, that felt real, I let fear decide for me." Another pause. I've thought about you both every day since. Sarai's hands were clenched in her lap. She didn't cry. She didn't soften, but she didn't walk away either. Callum looked at her, really looked at her. You named her Layla, he asked gently. Sarai nodded. She has your eyes, she said. Unfortunately, she also has your stubborn streak. He gave a quiet laugh. I'd love to meet her, if she'll let me. Sarai studied him. There were no flowers, no gifts, no attempt to buy forgiveness. Just a man, aging into honesty. I won't make that decision for her, she said firmly. But if you're serious, we'll talk, one step at a time. Callum nodded. I'll earn it. She looked at him again. Not the boy who ran, not the heir to a real estate empire, but a man who finally showed up. And for the first time in 6 years, she let her shoulders fall. Sarai didn't tell Layla that Callum was her father. Not right away. She sat her down that evening after dinner, brushing her curls into soft puffs while cartoons played in the background. Someone special wants to meet you, she said carefully. Layla turned on the couch, cradling her purple bear. Who? Sarai hesitated. His name is Callum. He's someone I used to know, a long time ago. Layla's eyes studied her mother's face. Is he nice? He's trying to be. Why haven't I met him before? Sarai exhaled. Because sometimes adults make choices that don't make sense to kids, or even to themselves. Layla thought for a moment, her thumb tracing the bear's ear. Does he want to be my friend? Sarai smiled, just slightly. I think he wants to try. Layla didn't ask more. She never did when her mother spoke in that soft, certain tone. But she curled closer into Sarai's lap and said, Okay. They met at the same park. Saturday, noon. Sarai brought a picnic blanket, sandwiches cut into stars, and a water bottle filled with strawberry lemonade. Layla wore her favorite pink sneakers and a purple hoodie with stars on the front. Callum arrived 10 minutes early this time. He wore jeans and a light sweater, no suit jacket. When he saw Layla, he stopped completely. His face changed, not with panic or shock, but something else. Awe, like the world had paused. Sarai watched him carefully. Layla held tightly to her bear. Callum knelt down. He didn't rush closer. He didn't stretch out his arms. He looked her in the eyes. Hi, he said gently. I'm Callum. Layla blinked. Are you the man from the email? Sarai's stomach dropped, but Callum didn't flinch. Yes, he said honestly. I sent a message because I wanted to meet you. Only if you wanted to. Layla studied him like she was solving a puzzle. You have Mummy's eyes, she said after a moment. Callum smiled. And I think you have both of ours. She tilted her head. Why weren't you there before? He swallowed. Because I was afraid, and I made a mistake. A big one. Layla squinted. Did you say sorry? I did. But only to your mum. I haven't said it to you yet. He paused. I'm sorry, Layla. I should have been there. Layla looked at Sarai, then back at him. Mommy says people can change if they want to. Callum blinked fast, emotion rising. She's right. Layla held out her bear. This is Teddy. He smiled. It's nice to meet you, Teddy. And me? He softened. It's an honor to meet you, Layla. She walked over, sat on the blanket, and began eating a sandwich like she hadn't just cracked open a man's entire soul. The rest of the afternoon was quiet. Callum asked about her favorite subject in school reading, her favorite animal, tigers, and whether she liked cartoons or drawing better, both, depending on the day. He never tried too hard, never reached for her, never pushed. He just listened. And Sarai watched. She saw the nerves in his hands, the way his jaw tightened when Layla laughed, as if trying not to cry in front of her. He looked at his daughter like he couldn't believe she was real. Sarai remembered that feeling. The day Layla was born, the moment her tiny hand wrapped around her finger. That stunned, aching wonder. She wondered if Callum was feeling it now. On the way back to the car, Layla asked if he would be there next weekend. Callum looked at Sarai. She gave the smallest nod. If you'd like me to be, he said. Layla shrugged. I guess. You're not weird. He laughed. Thanks, I think. Sarai held her daughter's hand and quietly took the first breath of something that felt like maybe it could be peace. The next few visits were simple. Callum met them at the same park. He brought books instead of toys, snacks instead of big gifts. He learned quickly that Layla hated raisins but loved apples, that she liked to climb but hated bugs. He asked questions, never about Sarai, always about Layla. He didn't bring up the past. He didn't talk about himself unless she asked. One day, he showed up with a sketch pad and a set of colored pencils. I thought maybe you'd like to draw together, he said. Layla lit up. Mommy doesn't let me bring all my colors outside. Sarai raised a brow. Because you lost half of them last time in the grass. Callum chuckled. Well, let's see how she does with these. They sat under a tree, Layla cross-legged in the grass, Callum sketching beside her. Sarai read on the bench but peeked up every few minutes. At one point, Layla showed him her drawing, a family of lions. 2 adults, 1 cub. Callum stared at the page, then said softly, "That's beautiful." She grinned. "You're the big lion because you have big shoes." He smiled. "Fair enough. Mommy's the lioness because she's the boss." "Agreed. And I'm the baby because I roar the loudest." They both laughed. Sarai bit her lip, holding back tears. That night, Layla crawled into bed beside Sarai and whispered, "He talks soft." "Like you." Sarai brushed her daughter's hair off her forehead. Yeah. He listens too." She hesitated, then said, "Can I call him Daddy? Or is that bad?" Sarai's throat tightened. "It's not bad, baby. That's your choice." Layla nodded, sleep pulling at her. "I think I'll try it next time." The next Saturday, Callum was laying out a puzzle on the picnic table when Layla walked up, held out her sandwich, and said, "Daddy, I saved the big piece for you." He didn't answer right away. His hands froze. His chest moved in a quiet inhale. Then, without blinking, he said, "Thank you, sweetheart." She beamed and sat beside him. Sarai watched from a distance, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself believe healing might be possible. What would you do if the person who abandoned you or your child suddenly wanted a second chance? Do you know someone who had to choose between protecting their peace and reopening an old wound? Sarai stood at that crossroad, choosing what was best for her daughter, even if it reopened her past. Would you have let him meet the child he left behind? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this chapter touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Charles' Stories. We've only just begun. Callum didn't miss a single Saturday. Rain or shine, he arrived 10 minutes early and waited patiently at the same park bench. No texts asking for confirmation, no last-minute excuses, just presence. Layla noticed. The first few weeks, she asked Sarai if he'd still be there every time. By the 5th Saturday, she packed her crayons and snacks without question. That shift didn't go unnoticed. Sarai observed everything, how Layla walked with more confidence, how her questions shifted from "Why wasn't he here?" to "Can we bring him cookies today?" Trust was growing. And Callum, he never took it for granted. One morning, Sarai stayed on the bench while Layla and Callum built a stick fort by the lake. A woman nearby glanced over and asked, "Your husband?" Sarai paused, then replied, "Not exactly." The woman smiled knowingly. "He looks like he's been trying hard for a while." Sarai didn't answer, but her silence said enough. Callum never rushed Sarai. He greeted her with warmth, never pressure. Some days he brought her tea. Other days he said nothing at all, just sat beside her after Layla ran ahead. One afternoon, Sarai asked, "You still live in Buckhead?" Callum nodded. "Top floor. Same building. But it's quiet now." She raised a brow. "No girlfriend?" "No," he said. "Not since you—" Sarai gave a short laugh, more out of surprise than flattery. "I wasn't expecting that answer. I wasn't expecting you to still be raising our daughter with that much strength," he said gently. A few weeks later, Layla fell while running on gravel. It wasn't serious, a scraped knee and a bruised palm, but she cried from shock more than pain. Callum dropped everything, scooped her up, whispered something Sarai couldn't hear. By the time Sarai reached them, Layla had stopped crying. She said she wanted Mummy, he said softly, handing her over. Sarai knelt, checking the scrape. You're okay, baby. Layla sniffed. Daddy kissed it better. Now it just needs a band-aid. Callum's eyes widened at the word. He didn't move, didn't react. But Sarai saw his shoulders shift, like something cracked open quietly inside him. That night, Sarai found herself standing by the kitchen window long after Layla had gone to sleep. Aunt Renee walked in with her mug of tea. You okay, baby? Sarai nodded slowly. He's different. Renee didn't ask who. He's not trying to fix things with money. He just shows up. Renee sipped her tea. Sometimes, a man's apology shows up in his consistency. Sarai looked at her aunt. Do you think it's too late? Renee smiled. Not if Layla's already calling him Daddy. The next weekend, Callum showed up with a shoebox. I hope this isn't overstepping, he said, placing it in Sarai's hands. Inside were art supplies, watercolors, sketch pads, coloring pencils, and a small folder with Layla's name etched in gold. Sarai looked at him. She mentioned wanting to learn how to paint. Sarai closed the box. This is thoughtful. Thank you. You've raised a brilliant kid, he said. I just want to know her. She nodded. That's still the goal, right? Callum's voice dropped. It's the only goal. Later that week, Sarai's car broke down outside the clinic. She didn't call him. She called roadside assistance, then her aunt. Callum found out 2 days later when he came to drop off a new set of markers Layla had requested. You should have told me, he said. It wasn't your responsibility. Sarai, he said gently. I don't want to be helpful only on Saturdays. She folded her arms. You don't owe me. I know, he said, cutting her off. But I still want to. He took the keys and had the car towed to a trusted mechanic before she could protest. That Saturday, when he dropped the car off at the clinic lot, Sarai stared at it. It looked the same. Nothing flashy, no added bells and whistles. But she knew the brakes had been replaced. The oil changed. The tires rotated. The windshield wipers swapped. You didn't have to go that far, she said quietly. I wanted to, he replied. Because you never asked, and you deserve someone who just does. Sarai didn't have a reply, so she walked inside. But that night, she couldn't stop thinking about what he said. One night, after Layla had fallen asleep, Callum lingered near the porch while Sarai packed up picnic containers. Want help? He asked. She didn't answer. She just handed him a stack of napkins. They moved quietly together. Then he said, I know I'm not part of your daily life, but if something happens, if you need anything, you can call me. Sarai glanced at him. I'll think about it. Callum didn't push. But in that moment, she realized something. He had finally stopped acting like a visitor and started becoming part of the village. It started with small things. Callum began texting on weekdays, not intrusively, but enough to show he was thinking. Layla said her book bag zipper broke. Want me to bring her another one? Clinic must have been crazy today. Did you eat yet? Just passed by that park near Decatur you mentioned. We should take her there sometime. The old version of him, the one who disappeared after her pregnancy, never asked questions like that. He never followed through. But this version, he remembered details. He respected boundaries. And he showed up, even when no one was watching. One Thursday, Sarai forgot Layla's lunchbox in the rush to leave. She didn't notice until she was halfway to the clinic, already 20 minutes late for shift report. Her stomach sank. She could picture her daughter, lips tight, silently disappointed. She didn't want to ask, but she did. Are you near Midtown? Callum replied instantly. I can be in 15. Is everything okay? I forgot Layla's lunchbox. She'll act like it's the end of the world. I got it. Tell me where to go. He didn't ask for thanks. He didn't gloat. He just dropped it off, smiled at the daycare staff, and sent Sarai a picture of Layla holding up the box like it was a trophy. Later that evening, Sarai replied, Thank you. Callum texted back, "Anytime." Always. She stared at that word. Always. For the first time, she believed it. That weekend, Layla didn't want to go to the park. She wanted to bake. "Cookies," she said, "with chocolate chips and extra sprinkles." Sarai gave her a look. "Sprinkles don't go in chocolate chip cookies." Layla pouted. "But they're happy cookies." Callum, sitting on the couch reading with Layla, chuckled. "She's not wrong." Sarai raised a brow. "You know how to bake?" "Not unless preheating the oven counts." Layla grinned. "Mommy can teach us." Callum's eyes met Sarai's, cautious but hopeful. "We could try, if you're okay with it." She hesitated, then nodded once. Her kitchen wasn't big, but it felt full. Layla stood on a stool, tossing flour like confetti. Sarai moved swiftly between ingredients, while Callum fumbled with measuring spoons like they were tools from another planet. "Don't pack the brown sugar," Sarai said, guiding his hand. "I thought more was better." "Not when the cookies turn into bricks." Layla laughed so hard she almost dropped the egg. Callum cracked his next one, with exaggerated care. It was the first time in years Sarai laughed without overthinking it. Not because of Layla, not because of work, because of him. After the cookies cooled and Layla ran to the living room with a plate, Sarai stayed behind to wipe down the counter. Callum leaned back on the fridge, watching her. "You've built something amazing here," he said quietly. "She's smart, kind, strong. That's you." Sarai kept wiping the same spot. "Don't give me a speech." "I'm not." He stepped closer. "I'm just in awe of what you did, with no help, no shortcuts, and no bitterness." Sarai finally looked at him. "You think I wasn't bitter? I think you never passed it on to her, and that's the most powerful thing anyone could have done." She stood still, then said softly, "I had no choice. Her peace mattered more than my feelings." Callum nodded. "I see that now." They stood in the quiet kitchen, only the sound of cartoons in the background, and Layla's faint voice mimicking cookie commercials. Then Sarai whispered, "You broke me, Callum, but I built myself back without needing to break you." His throat tightened. "I know, and I will never stop being grateful for the way you protected her from my mistakes." She didn't say more, but she also didn't ask him to leave. Later that night, after Layla had fallen asleep and the dishes were done, Sarai stood at the door while Callum slipped on his jacket. "I'm not trying to force my way back in," he said, "but I'd like to be part of what's ahead. However you allow it." Sarai looked at him, longer than she ever had since he came back. "You don't get to rewrite history," she said. "I'm not trying to, but you can shape the future," she added. "If you're patient." Callum nodded. "Then I'll wait." As he stepped outside, Sarai whispered, "You're not the man I remember." He turned slightly. "Is that a good thing?" "I haven't decided yet," she said. But the truth, she had. She just wasn't ready to admit it out loud. By December, it stopped feeling temporary. Callum was no longer just that man at the park in Layla's eyes. He was Daddy now, the one who brought snacks in baggies with her name written in marker, the one who watched her ballet recitals even when she danced off-beat, the one who sat on the floor and let her paint his nails, blue, glittery, uneven. Every Friday night she'd ask, "Are we seeing Daddy tomorrow?" And Sarai would nod, even if her answer was tired. Consistency. That's all Layla ever wanted. Now she had it. Sarai noticed the difference in her daughter. She laughed louder. She asked more questions. She started writing stories, little drawings of 3 people holding hands, titled Our Family. It used to be just the 2 of them. Now, her pictures had a tall man with curly hair in them too. Sarai didn't correct her. Callum never overstayed. Even when Sarai invited him in after a park visit, he'd linger near the doorway, ask about Layla's lunch schedule, or help rinse out a juice-stained thermos. But his eyes always scanned the space, like he was waiting for her to say, "That's enough for now." Sarai never did. Not because she wanted him to stay forever, but because she didn't mind if he came back. One morning, Sarai woke to an alert on her phone. Layla had climbed out of bed, snuck into the living room, and used the tablet to leave a voice message in the shared family group Callum had created weeks ago. "Hi, Daddy. I made a new friend at school. Her name is Camila. She says she has a daddy and a stepdaddy, but I told her I only have one daddy, and he's mine. Okay? Bye." Sarai listened to the message 3 times. She didn't delete it. She forwarded it to herself, just in case. At work, her co-workers started noticing. "You've been smiling more, Keisha," a fellow nurse said one afternoon. "Got a new man?" Sarai chuckled. No new man. Just old piece showing up new ways. Keisha didn't press, but Sarai's smile lingered longer than she expected. Then came the Saturday that changed things. They had gone to a quiet trail with Layla's bike in the trunk. Callum jogged behind while Sarai walked with a bottle of water and band-aids, just in case. Layla rode ahead, bright and brave, wobbling as she learned to coast without training wheels. At one point, Callum stopped to tie his shoe, and Sarai handed him the water. Their fingers brushed. He didn't move away. Neither did she. They stood in the quiet, sun streaking through the leaves. Then he said softly, "I miss this." Sarai turned slightly. "You never had this." He nodded. "Exactly." She didn't speak, but her silence wasn't cold. It was soft, like maybe she didn't mind sharing space anymore. Later that evening, after Layla had fallen asleep in the back seat, they pulled into Sarai's driveway. Neither of them moved. Callum stared at the dashboard. "I used to think I needed to have everything in order before I could show up." Sarai looked at him, and now I know showing up is the order. He turned to her, his voice low. "You've done more than raise our daughter. You've raised the bar on what love looks like." She stared at him, unsure how to respond. So she said what came naturally. "She loves you, deeply. But don't break her." "I won't," he promised. "And I won't break you either." Sarai nodded once, slowly, then whispered, "Good." Inside that quiet moment, she realized something. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. Not of the man he had been. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to trust the man he was becoming. Sunday dinner at Aunt Renee's was a tradition Sarai rarely missed. Not because of the food, though Renee's cornbread could bring peace to any argument, but because it was grounding, familiar, whole. This time, Callum joined them. Not at Sarai's request, at Layla's. She had asked casually while licking the icing off her cupcake, "Can Daddy come too?" Sarai glanced at her aunt, who raised a brow but stayed silent. Sarai hesitated, then nodded. "If he's free." Layla cheered like it was Christmas morning. Callum brought flowers for Aunt Renee and pie from a downtown bakery. He showed up 5 minutes early, dressed in jeans and a black crewneck, sweater that made him look more like a school teacher than a CEO. Renee opened the door and gave him a long look. "Callum," she said. "Been a while." "Yes, Mum." "It has. You left a girl on my couch with swollen ankles and no plan." Callum's jaw tensed. "I know. And I'm here now to be accountable." Renee didn't reply. She stepped aside and let him in. "That's a start," she muttered. Dinner was better than expected. Layla talked non-stop about school, friends, the squirrel that ran across her lunchbox last week. Callum listened to every word like it was scripture. Sarai watched quietly, taking it all in. Her daughter's laughter, her aunt's knowing glances. Callum's restraint. He didn't try to prove anything. He just fit. Not perfectly, but honestly. After Layla went to the living room to watch cartoons, Sarai helped clear the table while Aunt Renee dried dishes. "He's changing," Sarai said finally. Renee handed her a towel. "So are you. I don't know what to call this. You don't have to call it anything yet. But don't pretend it's not real." Sarai sighed. "He broke so much." "Yes. But he didn't shatter you. You made sure of that." Renee paused. "But don't let survival keep you from softness, baby, especially if it's earned." Sarai blinked slowly. Her aunt always knew the right time to hit the heart. That night, after Callum walked them to the car and Layla buckled herself in, Sarai turned to him. "You did okay. He smiled. She didn't throw cornbread at me, so I'll take that as a win. Sarai leaned against the door for a second. Why now? She asked. Callum's face sobered. I got an email from a former employee. He said he saw a little girl with my eyes playing outside a clinic, and he knew you used to work there. Sarai tensed. I didn't look for you before because I didn't think I deserved to, he continued. But when he mentioned her eyes, something in me couldn't ignore it anymore. He looked at her, steady. I had to see her. And you? Sarai didn't speak for a while, then softly said, You don't get to do this halfway. I know. You don't get to warm up her heart and then disappear. I won't. You don't get to ask for more than what she's ready to give. I'll take only what she offers. Sarai looked down at the pavement, then back up at him. She's letting you in, Callum, slowly. Don't ruin that. I won't, he said again, and this time it wasn't a promise. It was a vow. Later that night, Layla climbed into Sarai's lap after brushing her teeth. Can we keep Daddy? Sarai smiled faintly. He's not a puppy. Layla giggled. But he's kind of like one. Sarai pulled her close. If he keeps being kind and patient and good to us, maybe he'll stay. Layla beamed. Good. I like him in our pictures. Sarai kissed her daughter's forehead. Me too. She didn't know where this would lead. She wasn't dreaming of rings or a wedding. But she did know this. A man who once walked away was walking back, step by step, with steady feet. And for the first time in a long time, she was starting to walk toward him too. The flyer came home in Layla's backpack, crumpled between a juice-stained worksheet and a glittery bookmark. Winter Showcase, Friday, 6 p.m. Parents invited. Students would sing, recite poems, and present handmade crafts. There'd be cookies and cocoa afterward. Sarai placed the flyer on the kitchen counter like she always did. Another event, another please reply. Then Layla said, Can Daddy come too? The words were soft, hopeful. Sarai froze halfway through stirring spaghetti. She glanced at her daughter, who was sitting at the table drawing a picture of 3 stick figures holding a snowflake. Did you ask him already? Sarai asked. No. I wanted to ask you first. Sarai nodded slowly. Okay. He can come. Layla lit up. He can sit in the front row with you, right? Sarai smiled, even though a tiny knot tightened in her chest. Right beside me. That night, she texted Callum. Layla's school has a winter showcase next Friday at 6 p.m. She wants you there. He replied instantly. Wouldn't miss it. Thank you for telling me. Sarai stared at his message a few extra seconds before locking her phone. Friday came fast. Layla spent the morning brushing glitter onto her poster and rehearsing her poem in front of the mirror. Sarai pressed her dress, packed extra snacks, and braided her hair carefully. You nervous? She asked as Layla tugged on her boots. Nope, Layla said confidently. I've got people who love me. That's enough. Sarai blinked. Who taught you that? You did. They arrived 10 minutes early. The school auditorium buzzed with chatter and the sound of folding chairs dragging across floors. Sarai scanned the crowd. No Callum yet. She didn't panic. Not right away. She took 2 front-row seats and helped Layla find her class. Parents filed in. Phones came out. Programs unfolded. Still no Callum. Her stomach began to twist. She texted him, You on your way? No reply. She turned her phone face down. Then, just as the lights dimmed and the music teacher stepped onto the stage, he slipped into the seat beside her. Breathless, eyes scanning the front, he whispered, Sorry. There was an accident on 285. I parked 2 blocks away and ran. Sarai didn't reply, but she didn't move her bag off the seat beside her until he arrived. The curtains opened. Layla stood in the 2nd row, 3rd from the left. She spotted them instantly. Her hand shot up in a wave. She beamed so hard, her cheeks puffed. Callum waved back, eyes wide. I'm not ready for this, he whispered. She looks like a star. She is, Sarai said softly. When Layla began her poem about winter, warmth and family, Sarai felt her chest swell with emotion. Then Layla said the last line, "And love comes back, even if it took the long way home." The room clapped. Parents cheered. Sarai didn't move. Callum's jaw was clenched. His eyes glistened. He whispered, "Did she write that?" "She did." After the show, Layla ran into his arms like she had waited her whole life for this moment. "You saw me, right?" she asked. "I saw every second," Callum replied, lifting her with both arms. Sarai stood beside them, arms folded, watching her daughter shine. They drove home in the same car. Layla snored softly in the back seat, holding her poster like it was made of gold. "She wrote that line about me," Callum said suddenly. Sarai nodded. "She believes you're staying." He looked out the window. "She's right." Callum didn't leave after the showcase. Sarai didn't ask him to either. Layla had fallen asleep the moment her head hit the pillow. Her sparkly boots still lay by the front door. Her drawings were scattered across the dining table, and her poster leaned against the kitchen counter, bent at one corner. Sarai moved through the house quietly, gathering what she could. Callum stood nearby, watching. "I can help," he offered. She handed him Layla's backpack. No words, just a simple gesture. He took it and started zipping compartments closed like it was the most important task in the world. It felt easy. Once everything was tidied, they stood in the kitchen, the overhead light casting a soft gold glow on the counter. Sarai leaned against the sink, arms crossed, tired but steady. Callum stayed on the other side of the room, not too close. "She wrote that poem a week ago," she said. "Didn't show it to anyone." "She didn't need to," he murmured. "She knew what it meant." Sarai looked at him carefully. "Did you?" He nodded. "I spent years thinking I was doing the noble thing by staying away, like my absence was some kind of protection. But all I did was abandon two people who never asked for perfection, just presence." His voice cracked slightly. "And I don't expect either of you to erase that truth. But I'm not here to rewrite the past, Sarai." He stepped a little closer. "I'm here to be better in your present, and maybe, if you let me, your future too." Sarai's throat tightened. There had been so many nights where she imagined saying everything she felt, to his face, without hesitation. But now that he was here, she didn't feel anger. She felt something scarier. Hope. "I was afraid of letting you close again," she admitted. "Not because I still hate you, I don't, but because I don't trust easily anymore." "You shouldn't," he said. "I have to earn it." She looked up. "And you're okay with that?" "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't." They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that wraps around two people like a blanket, not heavy, just warm enough to feel safe. Then Callum spoke again. "I never told you why I sent that email." "Not really. You said someone saw her." "At the clinic." "Yes," he said. "But that wasn't the whole story." Sarai raised an eyebrow. "I was sitting in my father's office. He was reviewing paperwork for a legacy project, talking about the future of the family name. And for the first time I realized I didn't care about any of it. Not the empire, not the name, not the legacy." He paused, jaw tight. "I cared about the legacy I abandoned." Sarai blinked. Callum stepped forward, slower this time. No pressure, just honesty. "I don't want to be remembered for buildings and balance sheets. I want to be remembered in her drawings, in your piece, in whatever story she tells about her parents someday." He looked her dead in the eye. "I want her to say, 'My daddy came back, and this time, he stayed.'" Sarai's lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, she stepped back and opened the fridge. "You want tea or water?" she asked. He smiled. "Tea." They stood by the counter sipping quietly. No declarations, no fireworks, just warmth. And that was enough. Before he left, Callum walked over to Layla's room. She was still sleeping, curled into her blanket, her stuffed bear under her arm. He didn't go inside. He stood in the doorway and whispered, "Thank you for giving me a second chance." Sarai watched from behind, and she realized, for the first time in years, her heart wasn't braced for the next goodbye. It was beginning to trust the possibility of staying. By January, the rhythms had shifted. Callum no longer needed permission to be part of Layla's life. He earned it, day by day, errand by errand, moment by moment. He showed up early to her dental appointment when Sarai's clinic shift ran late. He emailed her teacher to volunteer for class snack day and actually delivered the snacks himself, cut fruit and not a single sugary bribe. He bought her a new lunchbox after she said the zipper on the old one sounded tired. But more than that, he adjusted his entire schedule to be around her. One evening, Sarai noticed a missed call from Callum. Not a text, a call. She hesitated, then called him back. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah. I just wanted to tell you I resigned from 2 boards. She frowned. "Why?" "They were keeping me out of town too much. I want to be present, not just around." Sarai was silent. "I know that sounds like a small thing," he added, "but it's a big one for me." She smiled faintly. "It's not small." Later that week, Sarai picked up Layla from school and found her holding a printed-out calendar. "Daddy made me my own schedule," she said, waving it proudly. Sarai looked closer. It had Daddy Days marked in purple, Mommy and Me Days in pink, and Family Days in gold. He had even listed homework helper time at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. Layla beamed. "Now, I don't have to guess anymore." Sarai ran her fingers over the paper. Something about it made her eyes sting. That Saturday, Callum came by, not for a park day or a baking session, but to help Sarai set up a small desk for Layla's room. The pieces were all over the floor. Screws, instructions, Allen wrench. "Don't overthink it," Sarai said, holding the manual upside down. "I built her bookshelf in college with nothing but faith and a spoon." Callum laughed. "This is payback for all the group projects I skipped in college." Sarai raised a brow. "You skipped group projects?" "I didn't see the value of showing up back then." She handed him a screw. "Now, I don't miss anything that matters." They worked side by side, him sitting cross-legged, her cross-armed, reading instructions that made no sense. He tightened the last bolt and looked up at her. "We're good." "You sure?" she teased. "It's not going to collapse when she sits. If it does, I'll build her another one." "Better." The words settled in her chest. He wasn't talking about the desk anymore. After the setup, they stood in the doorway, admiring the little white desk, the lamp, the neatly stacked colored pencils. Sarai folded her arms. "She'll write stories here. She'll build worlds," Callum added. They looked at each other, and for the first time, Sarai didn't just see a CO parent, she saw a partner. Later that night, after Layla had finished dinner and curled up on the couch watching a movie, Sarai stepped out to the porch with Callum. The air was cold, their teacups steamed. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" she asked. Callum took a breath. "Because I was afraid of what you'd say, and more afraid of what I'd see in your eyes." She stared at him. "What do you see now?" He didn't hesitate. "Strength, forgiveness, a door I thought I'd lost, but now I knock on carefully." Sarai looked away, swallowing. "I'm still not sure what to do with all of this." Callum nodded. "Then let me help you figure it out." Slowly, the door creaked behind them. Layla peeked her head out. "Are you coming back in?" "The movie's almost over." Callum smiled. "Be right there, princess." As she disappeared back inside, Sarai looked at him. That name, Princess. He chuckled. "Too much?" "No," she said quietly. "It suits her." Then she added, "And she's starting to believe it." Callum's face softened. "Then let's make sure she never forgets it." It happened in the quietest way, not with a kiss, not with a confession, but with a moment too real to ignore. Sarai had come home late from the clinic on a Tuesday. Her shift had run 2 hours over because of an emergency intake, and she hadn't eaten since noon. When she stepped into the house, she heard Layla giggling in the living room. Callum was there, sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping her with a puzzle. The kitchen smelled like sautéed peppers and garlic. Sarai paused in the hallway. She was tired, bone-tired. but the smell of warm food and the sound of her daughter's laughter melted something tight in her chest. "You cooked?" she asked as she walked in. Callum stood up, brushing crumbs off his pants. "I tried." Sarai gave him a look. "Okay," he added. "I followed instructions and watched a 10-minute video." Twice. She cracked a smile. "Still counts." Layla tugged her hand. "Come see our puzzle." "Daddy, let me do the hard parts." Sarai knelt beside her. "How generous of him." Callum grinned. "I'm still recovering." They all laughed, and for the first time, the room didn't feel divided by past or future. It just felt like now. After dinner, Sarai found herself standing next to Callum in the kitchen, washing dishes. They moved in sync, passing plates, rinsing cups, drying pans. No words, no tension, just flow. It was intimate in a way she hadn't felt in years. Safe, grounded. She didn't flinch when his hand brushed hers. She didn't pull away when he reached to take the towel from her. It wasn't a moment of passion. It was a moment of peace, and it shook her more than any kiss could. That night, as she folded laundry, Sarai sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the tiny pink socks she'd just washed. A question formed quietly in her mind. Not what is he doing? Or why now? But, am I ready? Was she ready to let herself feel again? To open a space in her life, not just for a CO parent, but for him? Could she trust it? Not the man he used to be, but the one standing beside her now. The next day, Layla said something that stopped her cold. They were walking home from school, hand in hand, when Layla asked, "Do you love Daddy?" Sarai blinked. "What?" Layla looked up, innocent as always. "You smile at him like you do, and you let him cook. You never let anyone cook but Auntie Renee." Sarai chuckled, trying to deflect. "He was just helping out." Layla pressed on. "But, if you do love him, can you tell him?" "Why?" "Because maybe it will help his heart grow stronger." Sarai stopped walking. Layla tugged her hand again. "In books, when people love each other and say it, they heal faster. Don't you think?" Sarai didn't answer. She just knelt, pulled her daughter close, and whispered, "You're something else." Layla giggled. "I'm your something else." That night, Sarai sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring up at the sky. Callum joined her quietly. He didn't say anything, just sat. After a while she asked, "Why haven't you asked for more?" He turned to her. "More? To stay, to move closer, to call this something?" He sipped his tea. "Because I don't want to take anything you're not ready to give." She stared at him, her voice low. "What if I don't know what I'm ready for?" "Then I'll be here. While you figure it out." His voice didn't waver. His tone didn't rise. He meant every word. Sarai turned away from the stars and looked at him. Callum, the boy who left, the man who returned, the father who stayed, and maybe the partner who waited. She didn't speak, didn't make promises, but she reached for his hand, and he let her hold it. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. And for now, that was more than enough. What happens when the person who broke you returns, not with promises but with quiet consistency? Have you ever struggled with letting your guard down, even when someone is doing all the right things? Sarai built a life without him. Now he's back, patient, present, and proving himself day by day. If you were her, would you give him another chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this chapter pulled at your heart, don't scroll away. Like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more powerful stories like this one. The next part. It changes everything. Callum hadn't spoken to his father in months. Not since the day he stepped off the Drayton Board of Directors and told the family lawyers to remove him from any future real estate projects tied to the legacy portfolio. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't burn bridges. He just walked away, quietly, and in the weeks that followed, he breathed for the first time. He spent mornings packing Layla's lunch, afternoons helping Sarai with groceries, evenings reading bedtime stories about brave girls and flawed kings. But peace doesn't go unchecked. And legacies don't let go that easily. It started with a phone call from his father's assistant. "Mr. Drayton would like to invite you to dinner. Family only. This Friday." Callum almost laughed. Family? He hadn't been called family since the day he refused to marry the daughter of a hotel chain CEO and declared he was done being managed. Still, he didn't say no. Friday evening, he pulled into the circular driveway of the estate he used to call home. The same black iron gate, the same manicured lawn, the same cold glass windows that somehow managed to look down on everyone, even when closed. His father sat at the end of the table, crisp suit, untouched scotch in front of him. "Callum," he said, like it was a business meeting, "you look tired." "I'm at peace," Callum replied. "Same thing, sometimes." They talked numbers first. Stocks, market predictions, the downturn in suburban commercial property. Then, his father got to the point. "I hear you've been spending time in Stone Mountain." Callum didn't blink. "I have." "Back with the girl, then?" Callum took a slow sip of water. "Her name is Sarai, and she's the mother of my daughter." His father leaned back. "A daughter you hid for 6 years. A daughter I failed," Callum said firmly. "And I'm not doing that again." Silence. Then his father spoke quietly. "And what does she want from you now?" Callum laughed under his breath. "Nothing. She never did." "Then, what do you want from them?" Callum met his father's eyes. "Everything I should have given the first time." When he returned to his apartment that night, the space felt too big, too empty. He looked at the guest room he'd once prepped for business associates. Now it had a twin bed, a pink blanket, and Layla's books lined up by the wall. He picked up a drawing she left behind, a picture of their Saturday picnic. 3 stick figures. He folded it and placed it in his jacket pocket. The next day, Sarai noticed something in his eyes. A weight. They were walking through a small local market. Layla chasing butterflies in her face. Paint booth nearby. "You okay?" Sarai asked. He nodded. "Had dinner with my father last night." She slowed her pace. "Why?" "He wanted to remind me who I used to be." "And did he?" Callum looked at her. "No. But he reminded me why I never want to be that man again." That night, after Layla was asleep, Callum sat on the porch with Sarai. She handed him tea. "You didn't tell him about us, did you?" she asked. Callum shook his head. "There's no us yet." She looked at him, steady. "But there's something. There is." She stared out at the quiet street, moonlight brushing over the sidewalk. Then she whispered, "I don't want you bringing outside pressure into this home." Callum nodded. "I won't. I've spent too long protecting this peace." "I know," he said, "and I'm not here to disrupt it." He turned to her. "I'm here to build on it." That night, Sarai didn't ask him to stay. But when she opened the door to walk him out, she lingered longer. Callum took her hand. Not forcefully, not assuming. She let him. And that night, when she closed the door behind her, she leaned on it for a long time, fingers still tingling. The next morning, Sarai found a note in Layla's backpack. It was folded like a paper fortune teller. Inside, written in colorful markers, were 6 short words. "I think Mommy loves Daddy again." Sarai stared at it, her heart thumping. She didn't know when Layla had written it. She didn't know if it was for her or for Callum. But she knew one thing for sure. Children feel everything. And Layla had been watching. That Sunday, Sarai made pancakes. Not the boxed kind. The real kind. Fluffy. Buttermilk. Golden edges. Callum came over with fresh fruit and a bottle of maple syrup from a local vendor. Layla set the table without being asked. As they sat, something shifted. There was no tension. No invisible wall separating past from present. It felt like a home. After breakfast, Layla grabbed her stuffed bear and ran to the couch, humming. Callum helped clear the table. As he reached for a dish, Sarai stopped him. Her fingers brushed his wrist. They stood still for a moment. Then she said softly, "I read her note." He didn't ask what note. He just said, "She's observant." Sarai nodded. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything right now. But she's expecting something. Callum met her eyes. Then let's give her something real. Slowly, carefully. Later that afternoon, they took Layla to the botanical garden downtown. She held both their hands. At one point, she stopped at a bench, sat between them, and said, "I think you two should be best friends again." Sarai smiled. "We're working on that." Callum added, "It takes time." Layla shrugged. "You already share snacks. That's basically married." They both burst into laughter. Layla grinned like she'd won something. As the sun dipped low, Sarai and Callum sat on the porch while Layla napped inside. The air smelled like jasmine and quiet. Callum broke the silence. "I keep thinking about that poem. The one she read at the showcase." Sarai tilted her head. "Which line?" "Love comes back, even if it took the long way home." He paused. "I think that line was for both of us." Sarai looked down at her lap, then up. Maybe it was. He leaned in just a little. Not a kiss, not yet, but closer. "Would you let me prove that line right?" Sarai didn't answer immediately, but she didn't pull away either. Instead, she said, "I haven't loved anyone since you left. Not because I was waiting, but because no one else felt safe." Callum nodded. "Then let's build safe, together." They sat like that until the sun disappeared, and for the first time, Sarai didn't wonder if he'd leave again. She knew. He was home. By mid-February, the routine wasn't new anymore. It was real. Callum picked Layla up from school every Tuesday. He dropped off groceries on Thursdays, not because Sarai asked, but because he learned her rhythm. He even learned how to fold her laundry the way she liked, sleeves tucked, no shirt stretched. They never called it anything, but it was something full, something peaceful. And then, he did something that caught her completely off guard. He handed her a letter. It wasn't in an envelope. No dramatic seal, no ribbon. Just a folded page, handwritten, crisp. Sarai opened it in the quiet of the living room after Layla went to bed. It was a legal document, one that stated, in clear, notarized terms, that Callum Drayton had transferred full, legal guardianship of Layla to Sarai, with no dispute, no clause, no loophole. At the bottom, his signature. Below that, a note written in pen. "I know what I missed. This is me telling you I'll never take her away from you. Even if one day you stop choosing me, she's yours first. Always." See, Sarai sat in silence. For the first time in all the months since he came back, she wept, not from pain, from relief. The next morning, she walked into the kitchen and found him tying Layla's shoes. The way his head tilted when she asked about syrup, the way he smiled when she showed him her lopsided drawing. He looked up and saw her standing there, eyes a little red, holding the paper. She didn't say anything. She just walked over, cupped the back of his neck, and kissed his forehead. A slow, silent thank you. Later that day, while Layla napped, Sarai poured tea and sat across from him. "You didn't have to do that," she said, holding the letter. "I know," he replied. "That's why I did." She took a deep breath. "I've lived in survival mode for years, making sure every move was calculated, that no one could take her from me. I figured, this is the first time I've felt like I'm not fighting alone." Callum looked at her, eyes steady. "You never should have had to." That evening, they watched a movie together in the living room. Layla sat between them with her blanket and juice box, giggling at cartoon jokes. At some point, her head dropped onto Sarai's lap and her feet curled up on Callum's. Neither of them moved, not even when the credits rolled. Callum looked over. "I have something else to tell you." Sarai raised a brow. "Last month, I moved all of my father's money out of my personal trust." Her eyes widened. "Why?" "Because I don't want to build anything else in his shadow. Not this, not with you, not with her." She stared at him. He shrugged. "I want my hands clean. I want what's real." Sarai whispered, "That's a big step." He nodded. "So is love. And I want to take both." For the first time, Sarai didn't tense when he said the word, because this time, love didn't sound like a promise. It sounded like a practice. The rain came gently. Not a storm, not a downpour, just a soft, steady rhythm that tapped the windows like a quiet reminder. Everything changes, even the sky. Sarai sat at the kitchen table in her robe, her fingers wrapped around a warm mug. The house was silent. Layla had gone to bed early, worn out from painting and dancing around the living room. Callum stood at the sink, drying dishes without being asked. No words passed between them, just the sound of ceramic, cloth, and rain. After a few minutes, Sarai spoke. "Do you ever wonder how different things would have been if you hadn't left?" Callum paused. "Every day." She didn't look at him. "I used to think about it all the time, wondering if we'd be married, if Layla would have had you at every birthday, if I would have slept through a whole night without listening for her breathing." She exhaled. "But then I stopped asking, what if? Because it started hurting more than healing." Callum folded the towel and placed it down. "I don't deserve the what if, I only deserve the what now." She turned to face him. "And what is your what now, Callum?" He met her eyes. "You and Layla. Whatever shape it takes, whatever pace it needs." Sarai stood slowly, walked over, and leaned on the counter across from him. "I've had men try to fix their guilt with money, with grand gestures, but none of that helped me sleep. None of it helped her trust." Callum said nothing. "But the way you show up, the way you wait for permission instead of pushing for access, that's what makes me think." She trailed off. Callum stepped closer. "Makes you think what?" She hesitated, then whispered, "That I might love you again, or—" Still, Callum didn't flinch, didn't reach, didn't rush. He just breathed in the moment, like it was the only thing holding him together. "I'll wait until you're sure." She smiled. "You're already here. I'll stay until you say stay." "I already have." She stepped forward slowly, placing her hands on his chest, her heart thudding. His hand reached up, not to pull her in, but to hold the side of her face like it was something delicate, not fragile, valuable. Then finally, after months of silence, progress, patience, and presence, she kissed him. Not out of impulse, not to test anything, but because she trusted what they'd built, one step at a time. Later that night, Sarai sat by Layla's bed, tucking the blanket under her daughter's chin. Layla blinked sleepily. "Did Daddy go?" "No, baby," Sarai whispered. "He's still here." Layla smiled. "Good. He's part of our team." Sarai kissed her forehead. "Always." In the hallway, Callum stood barefoot, holding the same folded drawing Layla had given him 2 months ago. 3 stick figures. Still intact. Still together. And for the first time, he didn't wonder if he belonged. He knew. Callum didn't return to his father's house. Not after that dinner. Not after the final straw was quietly pulled. But he hadn't closed the door either. Not yet. That changed one chilly Thursday morning when a courier arrived at Sarai's porch holding a slim envelope. No return address. Just her name, printed in black. She opened it, and inside was a letter, not from Callum, but from his father. Short, cold, surgical. "I assume by now you understand your influence. I hope you'll respect what this family still represents. Walk away quietly. It's better for everyone involved." No signature, just the family crest at the bottom corner. Sarai didn't shred it. She placed it on the table, went to the kitchen, and poured a cup of tea. When Callum came over later that evening, she handed him the letter. He read it once, then again, then slowly folded it and set it on the table. "I'm not surprised," he said. Sarai leaned on the counter. "I didn't expect anything less. But the arrogance—" "I'll handle it." "No." He looked up. "No, Callum, we'll handle it." He blinked. "You're not angry?" "Oh, I'm furious. But I'm not afraid of men in big houses with dead hearts." He stared at her for a long moment, then walked over, placed both hands on the counter beside her, and said, "That's the most beautiful thing you've ever said to me." She smirked. Then you clearly weren't listening when I said your chili was disgusting. The next day, they drove to the Drayton estate, together. Sarai wore a blazer and jeans, simple, firm, grounded. Callum walked beside her with calm purpose, not apology. When the butler opened the door, his eyes widened. You brought her? No, Sarai said. He came with me. Inside, the house smelled like furniture polish and ego. His father was waiting. He didn't stand when they entered, didn't greet Sarai, didn't look impressed, just stared. You made your choice then, he said. Callum didn't flinch. I did. And you're prepared to lose everything? Callum placed a stack of legal folders on the table. Everything that tied me to this house, already signed over. His father's jaw clenched. Then you're no longer a Drayton. Callum nodded. No, I'm a father, a partner, and finally a man I respect. They left without another word. Outside, Sarai reached for his hand. Callum looked at her. You okay? She nodded. That wasn't your home anyway. He exhaled slowly. No, this. He gestured toward her, toward the car, toward the folded map in Layla's backpack. This is. Later that night, back at her house, Callum stood quietly in the living room. He turned to Sarai. There's one more thing. She raised a brow. Always one more. I bought land. Nothing flashy. Just a lot 2 miles from here. For what? He looked her in the eye. To build something with the people who taught me what home really means. Sarai didn't respond right away, but she didn't need to. She crossed the room, stood toe to toe with him, and whispered, Then let's build slowly. Together. Callum nodded. Brick by brick. The following week, Sarai took a day off work, not because she was sick, not because Layla had a fever, because she needed space, stillness, a moment to look at the life she had, and the one she was allowing herself to want. She sat in the backyard with an old journal and a pen that barely worked. No music, no distractions, just her thoughts. She wrote 3 names on the page: Sarai, Callum, Layla. Then, next to each name, one word: stayed, returned, believed. She stared at the list for a long time. Layla believed before either of them did. And Callum came back because of that belief. But Sarai, she had stayed through heartbreak, silence, and struggle. She had kept the light on. And now that someone was finally knocking, she was ready to open the door. That Saturday, Layla's school hosted a community fair. Bounce houses, face paint, funnel cakes, chaos wrapped in joy. Sarai stood under a tree with a juice pouch in hand, watching Layla run with 2 classmates. Callum approached from behind, quietly. She looks taller today, he said. She grew 1/2 inch this month, Sarai replied, smiling. He handed her a flower. Just one, not roses, a daisy, picked from the ground near the fence. I don't have a speech this time, he said. She took the flower. I don't need one. They sat together on a low bench while Layla climbed and laughed. Then Layla suddenly ran up to them with a hand-drawn sign that said, Family Day Rocks. Callum picked her up. It sure does, she giggled and whispered in his ear. He turned to Sarai. She wants to ask you something. Layla leaned over. Can Daddy stay for movie night, all the way through, even the silly commercials? Sarai smiled. Only if he brings popcorn. Callum grinned. I'll bring the whole aisle. That evening, they all wore pajamas. Layla's were covered in cartoon avocados. Callum's were borrowed, grey sweats and one of Sarai's oversized tees. Sarai wore the robe Layla had picked for her last Christmas. They didn't watch much of the movie. Layla fell asleep in the first 20 minutes. Sarai covered her with a blanket and sat back beside Callum on the couch. He reached over, not for her hand this time, but just to rest his fingers gently over hers. No pressure, no rush, just rhythm. Sarai turned her palm upward and held him back. After the credits rolled, Callum helped carry Layla to bed. He stood in the doorway afterward, watching her breathe. Sarai stood beside him, She's never had a night like this before, she whispered, where everything just felt whole. Callum turned to her. Neither have I. In the quiet of the living room, Sarai spoke again. I don't need big gestures, Callum. I don't want promises made under pressure. But I do need truth. Every time, you'll have it, he said. And I need you to show up, even on the boring days. He smiled. Especially on the boring days. And I need you to keep growing. Not for me, but for yourself. I already am, he whispered. She studied him for a long moment, then said, Then yes. Callum blinked. Yes to what? Sarai leaned closer. Yes to this. To us. To what we're building. He didn't kiss her. Not yet. Instead, he placed his forehead against hers and whispered, Thank you for waiting for me. Even when you didn't know you were. Spring came early that year. The trees along Stone Mountain Drive bloomed pink before March, and the mornings carried. That mix of chill and promise that always made Sarai pause by the window before work. Callum had started showing up earlier on weekdays, not to intrude, but to help. By 7:30, he'd already packed Layla's lunch, checked her backpack, and poured Sarai a mug of coffee with her usual spoonful of honey. He'd leave before she drove to the clinic, always with the same line, Text me when you're free. I'll be around. He didn't demand her time. He just made space for it. One Thursday, Sarai got home to find the sound of laughter spilling from the backyard. Layla was on a swing, her feet kicking the air. Callum was behind her, steadying the ropes, careful and patient. Higher. Layla squealed. You'll hit the sky if I do, he teased. I want to see the clouds. Sarai leaned against the porch rail, smiling. You two look like trouble. Callum turned, grinning. The good kind. She walked closer, her voice calm. You sure you're not spoiling her? I'm learning the difference between spoiling and showing up. That answer stopped her cold. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. He was right. That weekend, they drove to a nearby farmer's market. Something simple, just the three of them. Layla insisted on carrying her own basket. She filled it halfway with things she couldn't name, lavender, lemons, and one enormous zucchini she called Mr. Green. Callum followed behind with quiet pride, and Sarai couldn't help watching him when he wasn't looking. He moved differently now, no phone glued to his ear, no watch checking. He looked free. On their way home, Layla dozed off in the back seat, her head against the window. Sarai turned down the radio. You've changed. Callum kept his eyes on the road. Good or bad? Good, she said softly. But it's more than that. He glanced at her. What do you mean? You're not chasing redemption anymore. You're living it. He smiled faintly. I learned from the best. Sarai shook her head. You learn from the small things. That's what makes it real. He nodded. Then I'll keep doing the small things. That night, after Layla went to bed, Sarai sat with Callum on the porch. He handed her tea, the way he always did. Steam curled in the air between them. You know, he said quietly, every time I leave here, I drive slower. Why? Because I don't like how quiet it feels when I go back. Sarai looked up at him. Then don't keep leaving. He froze. She didn't look away. I'm not saying move in. Not yet. But if you're going to be here every day anyway, maybe it's time we stop pretending this isn't home. He blinked slowly, absorbing her words. You sure? I'm sure about how peace feels, she said. And this, what we have, it feels like peace. The next morning, Callum showed up early again. But this time, he didn't knock. He carried in groceries, set them on the counter, and whispered, Morning. My girls, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sarai turned from the stove. You sound comfortable. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Layla ran in wearing mismatched socks. Daddy, can we go see Auntie Renee this weekend? Sarai raised an eyebrow. Since when do you plan my visits? Callum grinned. Since we're family now, apparently. Sarai chuckled. You two are outnumbering me already. Layla shouted. Team Drayton Benson forever. Sarai sighed. That's a lot of syllables. Callum leaned close and whispered, "Sounds perfect to me." Later that evening, after dinner, Sarai stepped into the quiet living room. Layla was asleep again, barely 5 minutes into a cartoon. Callum sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. He looked up and said softly, "I've made my share of mistakes. But she—" He nodded toward Layla. "She's the best thing I'll ever be part of." Sarai stood there, heart full. "You're part of her because you earned it." He smiled. "And you? What about me?" He stood. "You're the reason she became everything good she is." For a moment, she didn't breathe. Then she said, "We both are." He took a step forward. "Sarai." She looked at him, waiting. "I'm not asking for the past back," he said. "I just want tomorrow with you." Sarai hesitated, then nodded once, slow and sure. "Then show up for it," she whispered. "Every day." He reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. This time, she held on first. Layla's room had changed over the years. The soft pink walls were now painted lavender. Her stuffed animals had moved from the bed to a shelf. Her books were stacked in uneven towers. And taped to her closet door was a drawing of the three of them, Sarai, Layla, and Callum, all holding hands. Sarai stared at it that night, long after Layla had gone to sleep. She couldn't stop thinking about what Layla had asked earlier. "Will Daddy still love me when I get big?" Sarai had smiled and said, "He will love you forever." But now, sitting on Layla's bed, that question echoed louder. She had meant what she said. She believed in Callum's change. But believing didn't mean forgetting. It didn't erase the years she held it down alone. She reached for the small photo frame by the nightstand, Layla as a newborn, her tiny fingers curled around Sarai's thumb. That version of her, tired, scared, but full of love, deserved peace too. Callum had shown up. He was consistent, humble, present. But tonight, something inside Sarai said it was time they talked openly, about everything. Not for closure, for clarity. The next morning, Sarai dropped Layla off early at her aunt's place. It was a Saturday. She called Callum before he could call her. "Coffee?" she asked. His voice warmed. "Anywhere." They met at a quiet coffee house near Inman Park. No noise, no crowd. Sarai wore her denim jacket, hair pulled back. Callum had on a grey sweater and jeans. No driver, no watch. Just him. They sat near the window. A patch of sunlight landed across their table. Sarai sipped her tea. "I want to ask something, and I want you to be honest." "Anything," he said, without hesitation. "When you walked away, did you ever think about coming back?" Callum didn't answer right away. He looked down at his coffee, then back at her. "Yes, every single day. But I told myself I didn't deserve to." Her throat tightened. "But you never called." "Not once." He nodded. "I was afraid I'd only cause more damage. I thought, maybe if I stayed away you could heal." Sarai's voice was steady. "You weren't the only one hurting." He swallowed hard. "I know." She let the silence sit for a moment, then asked the question that had sat in her chest for years. "Did you love me back then, or was I just an escape?" Callum looked up sharply. His voice cracked slightly. "You were never an escape, Sarai. You were the only real thing I had." He leaned forward. "My life was built on expectations, image, control. But you made me feel human. I just didn't know how to hold on to something so good." I panicked. I let my fear win. Tears burned in her eyes, but she didn't blink them away. "I carried our daughter without you. I delivered her without you. I raised her when I was still figuring out who I was." "I know," he whispered. "I don't need an apology, Callum. I need to know this version of you isn't temporary." He nodded slowly. "I'm here for the long haul, not because I want to fix the past, but because I want to build our future. Yours, Layla's. If you'll let me." Sarai looked out the window for a long moment. Then, quietly, she said, "I'm not who I was either. I'm stronger, but I'm also guarded." Callum didn't flinch. "I'll earn every wall you put in front of me." Weeks passed. Their rhythm shifted again, not as parents navigating coexistence, but as people choosing to build something together. Callum invited Sarai and Layla to a small family-owned pumpkin patch one Saturday. It was the first time they stepped out publicly, not as strangers, not as two individuals raising a child, but as something more. Sarai noticed the small things. How Callum carried Layla when her feet hurt. How he brought a spare blanket for the hayride, even though the forecast said 75 and sunny. How he didn't correct Layla when she painted his nails at the craft station. He wore those purple sparkles with quiet pride the whole day. Later that night, Layla fell asleep in the back seat of Callum's car. He parked in front of Sarai's building but didn't move. "She's growing up so fast," he said softly. Sarai nodded. "Every day." He turned toward her. "Thank you for not turning her heart against me." Sarai looked at him. "That was never my job. My job was to raise her in love, even when mine was broken." Callum exhaled, then reached into his coat. He handed her a folded paper. Sarai opened it. Her eyes scanned the page. It was a notarized document, a trust fund in Layla's name. Not flashy, not excessive, just safe. "It's not about money," Callum said. "It's about security. She deserves more than my presence. She deserves a future I couldn't give before." Sarai folded the paper gently. "Thank you." That winter, they celebrated Layla's 7th birthday. Sarai had planned something small. Balloons, homemade cake, a few friends from school. Callum arrived early, helping her decorate. He wore a paper crown Layla made, grilled hot dogs on the porch, and even danced to Disney songs in the living room. Sarai watched from the kitchen as Layla pulled him toward her new toy set. Callum knelt beside her, listening intently, not performing, present. The party ended with laughter, frosting on cheeks, and Layla yelling, "This was the best day ever!" After the guests left and Layla was tucked into bed, Sarai stepped onto the balcony. Callum followed, hands in his pockets. "That was special," he said. Sarai smiled. "She'll remember this one." He looked at her, quiet. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. She nodded. "I've spent most of my life chasing things, status, approval, business wins, and in the end, none of it mattered. This," he gestured inside, "you and Layla, this is all I want to build now." Sarai felt the sincerity in his voice. It wasn't a pitch, it was a promise. She reached for his hand. "I believe you." 2 months later, Callum invited Sarai and Layla to his family's holiday gathering. A soft, quiet affair at his country house in Asheville. Sarai hesitated. She didn't want to walk into his world and feel like she didn't belong. But Callum made it clear, if she said yes, it would be on her terms. So she did. And when they arrived, his mother greeted her with a warm hug. "You must be Sarai. Thank you for raising our granddaughter with so much love." Sarai blinked, surprised, but nodded politely. "She's my greatest joy." Layla ran off to join the cousins. Callum stayed close, never once letting her feel out of place. Later that evening, as they watched the snow fall from the large windows, Callum leaned in. "My family sees now what I couldn't see before. You were never the mistake. You were always the truth." Sarai didn't reply. She rested her head on his shoulder. One night in early spring, Layla found Sarai in the kitchen. "Mommy, are you and Daddy going to get married?" Sarai smiled gently. "Why do you ask?" "Because he brings you flowers now. And you smile at him like you used to smile at me when I was little." Sarai knelt to her level. "Marriage isn't a fix. It's a choice, a promise. If Daddy and I ever go down that path, it'll be because we're ready to build together, as a team." Layla nodded. "Okay. Can I be the flower girl?" Sarai laughed. "If that day ever comes, you'll be the first to know." Behind them, Callum leaned on the doorframe. He didn't interrupt, but that smile never left his face. "If this story moved you, if you felt the weight of her journey, the silence of those years, and the power of love that showed up in the end, then don't scroll away just yet. Too many mothers out there raise children alone, not by choice, but because someone walked away. And sometimes they never come back. But in this story, he did. He didn't bring money. He brought effort. He brought consistency. He brought healing. So now, I want to hear from you. Would you open that door again? Would you let someone like Callum back into your child's life? Was Sarai right to forgive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it, because your voice matters here. If this story made you feel something, even for just a moment, hit that like button. It helps more people see stories that matter. And if you believe in love that grows slowly, in forgiveness that's earned, in family that's built, not bought, then subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, because we tell the stories that stay with you. Share this with someone who needs it. You never know who's listening and who's ready to change. Thank you for being part of this community. We'll see you in the next story. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay hopeful.